You're sitting in a room, and outside, the world is screaming. Millions of people are losing their minds, staring at a screen, emotionally destroyed because 11 strangers lost a game. But you feel absolutely nothing. Your chest is quiet. Your throat is dry from a different kind of silence. You start to wonder, is there something wrong with me? Am I broken? Everyone else is bonded by this invisible force, sharing a forced smile or a collective cry, while you just sit there, feeling completely invisible, floating outside the tribe, completely alone. The roar from the living room cuts through the drywall, a sudden, violent burst of adrenaline that makes your stomach drop. They are hugging. They are high-fiving. They are crying tears of genuine devastation over a ball crossing a painted line, and you are frozen on the periphery, holding a plastic cup, trying to copy their facial expressions so they don't ask you that dreaded question. You simulate a nod. You mimic a sigh. But inside, the void only grows wider. A heavy, suffocating realization that you are speaking a completely different language than the rest of humanity. It's the same alienation you felt at 10 years old, standing on the edge of the playground asphalt, while the other kids organized themselves into perfect, seamless units. You remember the cold sweat pooling in your palms. You remember the burning humiliation of waiting as the names were called out, one by one, until only you were left against the fence. That childhood wound never really healed. It just changed its clothes. Now, as an adult, the playground has expanded into sports bars, stadium lights, and corporate small talk. You've been marked as an outsider again, but you aren't broken. Your brain is just wired differently. While 60% of the world relies on modern tribes to feel whole, your biology didn't inherit that same desperate need for collective camouflage. For thousands of years, belonging to a tribe meant survival. And sports are simply modern tribes with better merchandise. When a fan watches their team, their brain releases a flood of oxytocin, the bonding hormone. Their brains are literally tricking them into believing that these millionaire athletes are their actual blood relatives. Their survival instincts are hijacked by a logo, but your identity isn't a house of cards held up by the hands of a crowd. Psychologists call this having a lower tribal instinct. You are an island, and while islands can be lonely, they are also the only places where the ground doesn't shake when the crowd stomps its feet. Think about the psychological trap of being a fan. Every single play fires a microdose of dopamine into their brains, an unpredictable, dangerous high. It's the exact same chemical mechanism as a slot machine, a relentless cycle of behavioral addiction. They are trapped in a loop of intermittent reinforcement. They sit on the edge of their seats, hearts racing, blood pressure spiking, completely dependent on an outcome they cannot influence. It's a beautifully designed cage of chemical dependency, a collective anesthesia to numb the existential dread of their own lives. Waking up on a Monday morning with your entire mood, your productivity, and your kindness dictated by a referee's missed call. When their team wins, they loudly proclaim, "We won." But when the team fails, the language subtly shifts to, "They lost." It's a frantic psychological dance to protect a vulnerable, dependent ego. You don't have to play those linguistic games because your self-concept is quieter, heavier, and far more consistent. It isn't tied to a trophy you didn't earn. Yet the world looks at your consistency and calls it boring. They look at your quietness and assume you lack passion. They can't comprehend a fire that doesn't scream, or a flame that doesn't require 50,000 other people to keep it burning in the dark. There is a hidden grief in this indifference. The grief of watching the world share a massive, invisible joke that you simply cannot understand. You see the tears in a grown man's eyes when a championship is secured, and for a fleeting second you envy him. You wish you could care about something so simple. You wish you could walk into any bar, sit next to a stranger, and instantly have a best friend for the next 3 hours. Instead, you sit in the corner, nursing your drink, an alien looking through a glass pane. This emotional chasm runs deep into how we allocate our empathy. Your empathy isn't bound by a franchise contract. It's broader, more fluid, and often far more exhausting. You experience the world through art, deep intellectual challenges, or the heavy beauty of nature. You are hunting for meaning, connection, and transcendence. You're just searching in places the crowd never thinks to look. A landmark study found that people with low sports interest consistently score significantly higher in openness to experience and a love of philosophy. Your brain isn't broken. It's just tuned to a higher frequency, one that requires silence to be heard. You don't need a loud, manufactured spectacle to feel alive, because the internal world you inhabit is already loud enough. For some of us, this indifference is a quiet defense mechanism. If you grew up sensitive, bookish, or anxious, the locker room was a theater of judgment. The playing field was a stage where your physical inadequacies were put on display for everyone to mock. When you see grown adults screaming profanities at a television screen today, veins bulging in their necks over a missed catch, your childhood survival instincts flare up. Your brain associates that aggressive, unchecked competitive energy with danger. You pull back. Your indifference today is a protective wall you built to keep those ghosts away. It all comes down to how you survive the human experience. Sports fans find their meaning in collective narratives, the ultimate underdog story, the thrilling comeback, the bitter rivalry. But to you, that randomness feels completely empty. You look at it and think, why should I break my own heart over something I can't control, performed by people who don't know I exist, in a game that won't help me pay my rent tomorrow? You crave reciprocity. You want to invest your emotional energy where your presence actually matters, where you are a participant, not just a lonely spectator. When you invest yourself in a personal relationship, a creative project, or a local cause, your actions have a direct, measurable impact on the outcome. You aren't shouting into a void of 80,000 people, hoping an athlete hears you. You are building something real, block by block, in the quiet spaces of your actual existence. There is something quietly radical about choosing to be fully present in your own life, instead of spending hours watching someone else live theirs. Think about the sheer volume of time the average person sacrifices to the screen. 3 hours every Sunday, 4 nights a week, months out of every single year, consumed by the triumphs and tragedies of fictional deities in jerseys. They are living vicariously through the muscles and sweat of other men, using those external narratives to distract themselves from the unhealed wounds, the quiet marriages, and the dying dreams in their own living rooms. When you reject that distraction, you are forced to confront yourself. You don't have a game to numb the existential anxiety of a quiet Sunday evening. You have to face the silence. You have to sit with your own thoughts, your own failures, and your own ambitions. It's terrifying, which is exactly why so many people avoid it at all costs. Your indifference doesn't make you weak. It means you are strong enough to live without the collective anesthesia. You aren't content with sitting in the stands, consuming a narrative that was packaged and sold to you by a multi-billion-dollar corporation. You want to write the script. You want to feel the weight of the tools in your own hands. You want to experience the pain of a real failure. You want the unfiltered joy of a genuine, personal victory, even if nobody else is cheering for you when you cross your own finish line. You have the rare, terrifying freedom to choose exactly what your days will mean, without a corporate schedule telling you when to cheer. Every time you stay silent when the office talks about the draft, you are subtly reclaiming your own mental landscape. It's an exhausting way to live in a world that demands conformity, but it's the only way you know how to protect the fragile, quiet space inside your head. So the next time the room explodes around you and someone turns to ask if you saw the game, remember the truth. Your throat might go dry and the silence might feel heavy, but you are not boring. You are not a social failure. You are not missing out on what it means to be human. They are trapped in the stadium, running on an ancient biological treadmill. But you are finally free. You have stepped out of the Colosseum entirely. You are standing in the quiet air outside the arena, watching the lights glow against the night sky, hearing the muffled, desperate roars of the crowd inside. You don't hate them. You don't look down on them. You just understand that you belong to a different world. Your tribal instincts, your dopamine receptors, and your capacity for deep, meaningful empathy have been calibrated for a completely different journey. You've stopped looking for your reflection in the eyes of a crowd that doesn't see you. You're just playing a completely different game, one where you don't wear a uniform, one where there are no timeouts, and one where the referee never comes to save you. It's a solitary path, filled with the heavy silence of self-reflection and the occasional sting of isolation. But it's a path that belongs entirely to you. You are the author of your own meaning, the keeper of your own peace, and the creator of your own victories. And that game, just maybe, has much higher stakes.